I was planting beans when the first rumours reached our village. They did not come as a proclamation or a warning carried by officials, but as broken words spoken by men who had been running for days. They said the southern coast was burning. They said strange soldiers had come ashore, men who did not fight like bandits or border raiders, but like an army that did not stop moving. At first we did not believe them. Korea had known wars before, and always the danger seemed far away, something for soldiers and officials to deal with. We were farmers. We lived between the hills and the fields, and the world rarely troubled us. Then refugees began to appear on the road. Families passed by without carts, without animals, carrying children on their backs and nothing else. Their faces were grey with hunger and fear. Some had wounds wrapped in filthy cloth. They spoke of villages emptied in a single morning, of men cut down as they tried to flee, of women taken away screaming. They said the invaders carried weapons that thundered and spat smoke, weapons that killed without warning and without honour. Still, we told ourselves that the army would stop them. Surely the court would send soldiers. Surely this storm would break before it reached us. Days passed, and no soldiers came. Instead, more refugees arrived, and with them the smell of smoke carried on the wind. At night we could see a dull red glow far to the south, rising and falling like a sick heartbeat. My wife began to pack rice into sacks without speaking. The elders argued in whispers about whether we should flee into the hills. Some said running would only mark us as prey. Others said staying meant death. I remember standing in the yard, listening to these arguments, feeling as though the ground beneath my feet had begun to shift. When the first Japanese soldiers appeared, it was not as a great army filling the horizon, but as a sudden presence where none had been before. They moved quickly along the road, disciplined and silent, their armour dark and strange to my eyes. I saw long blades at their sides and unfamiliar weapons slung over their shoulders. One man raised a tube of wood and iron, and when it spoke, the sound cracked the air apart. A man near me fell without a cry, a hole torn through his chest. I did not understand what I had seen until later. In that moment, all I knew was that death had arrived faster than thought. Panic spread through the village like fire through dry grass. People ran in every direction, shouting names, grabbing children, abandoning food and tools. I lost sight of my neighbours almost immediately. Houses were set alight, not carefully, but with quick, practiced movements, as if burning villages was a task already mastered. Smoke choked the air, and sparks drifted down like black snow. I heard animals screaming in their pens and men crying out as they were cut down while trying to protect nothing that could be saved. I took my wife and our 2 children and ran toward the hills. The paths were crowded and the weak fell behind quickly. I wanted to help an old man who stumbled beside us, but my wife pulled me forward, her face rigid with fear. I still hear the sound he made when he fell, and the sound that followed when the soldiers caught him. It is a sound that returns to me in dreams, sharp and final. Survival demanded cruelty from us all, even those who never held a weapon. We hid among the trees until night fell. From the ridge we watched our village burn. The flames rose and collapsed as roofs fell in, sending sparks high into the sky. I felt as though part of my body were being consumed with those buildings, the rooms where we had eaten and slept and believed ourselves safe. Around us, other families crouched in silence. No one prayed aloud. No one spoke of the king or the army. All such thoughts felt distant and useless. That night, I understood that the world I had known was gone. The land had not changed, but everything that made it familiar had been stripped away. We were no longer villagers living beneath the protection of the state. We were bodies moving through a land at war, measured only by how fast we could run and how quietly we could hide. As the smoke drifted upward and the sky glowed red, I held my children close and wondered how far this terror would follow us, and whether there would ever again be a place where fear did not arrive before dawn. We did not stay in the hills long. Hunger drives fear into motion, and children cannot live on terror alone. After 2 days, the rice we carried was gone, and the youngest began to cry without stopping. We moved northward with others who had survived, slipping along forest paths and abandoned roads, always listening for footsteps, always expecting the sound of shouting or gunfire behind us. Some spoke of Korean troops gathering ahead. Others said the roads were already lost. No one truly knew anything, and rumour became our only guide. Along the way we passed villages that had not yet burned, but were already dead. Doors hung open, cooking pots lay overturned, and grain spilled into the dirt where it would never be gathered. In one place we found bodies laid out beside the road, hands bound, throats cut. No one stopped to count them. We had learned quickly that stopping invited death. My children stared at the ground as we passed, but my wife looked straight ahead, her face empty, as if she had already left her body behind. When we finally encountered Korean soldiers, they did not bring comfort. They were exhausted, disorganized, and afraid. Many had thrown away their armor to move faster. They spoke of battles lost almost as soon as they were joined, of Japanese soldiers advancing relentlessly, drilling in formation, protecting one another, moving as a single body. They said the thunder weapons tore through ranks before swords ever met. Listening to them, I understood that this was not a raid or a border war. This was an invasion meant to swallow the land whole. The Japanese found us again near a river crossing. We heard them before we saw them. Voices barking commands in a language I did not understand, boots striking the earth in rhythm. We scattered into the reeds and mud. I pressed my children down and covered their mouths with my hands. From where we hid, I watched as a group of villagers who had failed to flee were dragged into the open. Some were questioned, though I could not tell what was asked. When the answers did not please them, the soldiers cut them down without ceremony. There was no shouting, no rage, only efficiency. That was when I saw the head-taking. A soldier knelt, grasped a man's hair, and with a practiced motion severed his head, lifting it as one might lift a harvested root. Others did the same, moving quickly, stacking the heads in baskets. I did not understand why until later, when I learned that these heads were counted as proof, as payment. The knowledge sickened me more than the act itself. Our deaths were being tallied like grain. We fled again under cover of night, moving until our legs failed us. At dawn we reached a Buddhist temple, its gates still standing, monks moving quietly among refugees. For a short while we believed we had found sanctuary. The monks shared thin porridge and whispered prayers. Some villagers wept openly for the first time since the invasion began, but safety was an illusion. Before midday the Japanese arrived. The monks did not resist. They knelt. It did not save them. The temple burned, and the courtyard ran red. By then something inside me had broken. Fear had sharpened into numbness. I no longer thought in terms of past or future, only of the next step, the next hiding place, the next breath. I saw mothers abandon crying infants to save the others. I saw men walk willingly towards soldiers to buy their families a few moments more. These choices haunt me more than the violence itself. War does not only kill bodies, it dismantles the soul, piece by piece. As we moved farther inland, the roads filled with misery. Disease spread quickly among the displaced. Children died quietly in their mothers' arms. Old people lay down and refused to rise again. Still the invaders pressed on, unstoppable, uncaring of terrain or season. Word spread that the capital itself was threatened, that even the court was fleeing. When I heard this, I felt a hollow laugh rise in my chest. If kings could run, what hope had villagers like us? By then, survival was no longer a hope. It was simply something that happened, moment by moment, without meaning or promise. I survived, though for a long time I did not know why. When the Japanese armies finally moved on, they left behind a land emptied of its voice. Fields lay untended, irrigation ditches choked with ash and bodies. Villages that had stood for generations were reduced to blackened frames, their names spoken only by those who remembered them. We emerged slowly from hiding, like animals after a fire, cautious even of the wind. The war did not end all at once. It lingered in hunger, in sickness, and in the way people no longer trusted the sound of footsteps. My family returned to what had once been our village. Nothing remained but scorched earth and the stone foundation of our house. We found a broken pot, half buried, and my wife wept as if it were a lost child. Neighbours returned one by one, fewer each day. Some never came back at all. We did not ask where they had gone. In those days, absence needed no explanation. We rebuilt huts from scrap wood and lived like strangers on our own land. The dead were everywhere. Bodies lay in fields, in wells, in ditches where they had tried to hide. There were too many to bury properly. We burned what we could, prayed when we remembered how, and moved on. Disease followed us like a shadow. Even those who had escaped the sword fell to fever and hunger. My youngest child died that winter, not from violence, but from weakness. I held him as he faded, thinking bitterly how war kills even those it never touches. Stories spread as people travelled again. We heard of Korean armies defeated again and again, of commanders executed for failure, of cities falling without resistance. We also heard of resistance at sea, of Admiral Yi and his ships, of victories that slowed the invaders. These tales gave us something to cling to, though they felt distant and unreal. For villagers like us, victory meant little. The land itself had been wounded, and wounds do not heal because of banners or proclamations. I began to notice how the invasion had changed people. Men who once argued over boundary stones now shared food without question. Others grew hard and suspicious, guarding what little they had as if everyone were an enemy. Children played war games, mimicking the thunder weapons with sticks, their laughter sharp and wrong. When I tried to correct them, my voice sounded thin even to myself. How could I teach peace in a world that had erased it so thoroughly? Years passed, and life returned in pieces. Rice grew again in some fields. New houses rose where old ones had burned, but nothing felt solid anymore. Every sound at night still made my heart race. Even after the Japanese withdrew, fear did not leave us. We had learned too well how quickly the world could collapse. I no longer believed in distance or protection. I knew now that war could reach anyone, anywhere, without warning. I tell this not so my suffering will be remembered, but so it will be understood. We were not soldiers. We were not heroes. We were people who wanted to live quietly, to raise children, to die old in familiar places. The invasion stripped that from us. It taught me that history is not only written by kings and generals, but carved into the lives of those who never chose to be part of it. I survived, but survival is not the same as victory, and peace, when it finally came, felt fragile enough to shatter at the sound of distant thunder.